Good afternoon, and thanks for having me as the inaugural Australian speaker at this wonderful conference. I'm going to talk, I'm Andrew Schwartz, I'm the Group Managing Director, co-founder of Qualitas. We're an Australian stock exchange listed company. We manage some $6 billion primarily in the real estate debt market. I'm going to take you through a bit about three key takeaways from this presentation, describe the real estate debt market as we see it in Australia at the moment, talk a bit about the comparables between the Australian market versus some of the characteristics that we see in the US and in Europe, and in particular, if we get time, try and bring a bit of balance to, Australians love talking about Australia and how wonderful the country is, and it really is amazing, but also try and talk a bit about some of the risks that we see at the moment in the Australian marketplace as well. Hard to talk about opportunity without talking about risk. Just in terms of state of play in the economic landscape at the moment, and one of the main numbers I want to focus on this particular slide is the Australian GDP growth rate, which currently sits at 2.7%. I'm going to come back to this particular slide in a moment, but this slide behind me is the 30-year GDP growth rate in Australia. And what you can see is the last deep recession was in 1991. We had 29 years of straight growth from that period of time, and in fact I think Australia was one of the longest countries in the world to have had uninterrupted economic growth. We had the COVID recession, and since then we've strongly bounced back, which is where we are at the moment. But having a look at some of the other economic statistics as well, what you see there is a cash rate of 4.1%. That is up very substantially. We've had 12 interest rate rises in the last 13 central bank meetings, and I'm going to talk a bit about that and what does that mean for risks to the Australian economy as well. Unemployment rate at 3.5% is actually the lowest unemployment rate we've had in Australia now for some 60 or 70 years. Wages growth, I've got it in there at 3.3%. I prepared this presentation probably 2 weeks ago. Since then, there's been an arbitration commission outcome in respect of an awards wage rise of some 5.5% to a big proportion of the Australian working population. So on a trending annualised basis, you know, wages are probably growing closer to 7 or 8%, quite a substantial wage rise by historical trends. And you see employment growth at 3.3% as well. So Australia's growing. It's got very tight labour market. It's got strong inflation. It has very strong participation rate by